Hello people, it is I, returning from my rock after like every month. I really should get a better upload schedule. Anyway, this video has been a long time coming because I did this survey a while back and just never got round to videoizing it. Regardless, what is this about? Basically, I questioned 24 people on what they would do in various situations. Some had a clear, morally correct solution, but still required the thinking of who really needs this more, whereas other scenarios were merely, fuck, I can't choose. This survey has a lot less participants than my previous two, as most came from my Discord server. If you'd like to participate in any of these in the future, please join it. Link will be in the description. Before I begin, let me clear up a few things. First of all, I'm going to have a hard time trying to read dollars instead of pounds, because if you couldn't tell, I'm from the land of the king, and we use our own unique currency for absolutely no reason, and it just makes everything a pain. Secondly, yeah, I know that a lot of these given scenarios didn't have much detail, but let's be honest, most people who did this are teenagers. If I dumped the entirety of Ulysses into one of these questions, I'd be convicted of multiple manslaughters, death via sheer boredom. So I had to sacrifice a little bit of detail at the cost of viewer retention. Anyway, that's all. Allow me to begin. Gender ratio is nothing special. 7 females, 17 males, sounds like my Discord server. Ages were also mostly in the 13 to 16 ranges, with a few people 17 plus, which I mean, why are you all so young? I can't believe 2004 is already 30 years ago. Seeing as the trolley problem is the infamous one, let me just dump it in here. Usually it goes 50-50, but nope, most people would rather pull the lever and kill the one person. Starting off with the minor dilemmas, these were basically just little things, no repercussions, just more a little test as to whether you value your honesty. You pay for a $1.99 drink with a $5 bill. The cashier accidentally gives you $4.01 back. Do you tell them that they gave you an extra dollar back? 9 people would not have returned it, 15 would. To be honest, I'm curious as to whether people don't want to return it because they want to be a whole $1 richer, or because the hassle of going, "Oh sorry, it appears you gave me an extra dollar by mistake, here it is back," is just not worth it. To be honest, as someone that works at a checkout, I don't want to reopen the till just to put it back, just take the damn thing. You find a wallet on the ground, it holds nothing important, just $12 and a phone number. Do you take it? Unsurprisingly, most people would return it, 16 of you. Then another 6 of you would keep it, 1 person would hand it into the police, and the last would also go to check if no one grabbed it. Now this wasn't my intention, but reading my own scenario, I'm now thinking, why is there a wallet with nothing of value in other than money and a phone number? It's almost like they want you to call them. I feel like this is definitely some strategy traffickers may have tried once. Stay safe out there, I guess. Regardless, the safest option in my eyes is just to hand it into the police and move on with your day. It's not much money and it doesn't really put your safety at risk. Alternatively, taking it isn't a bad idea either, other than the fact it's not yours. You accidentally dent the car next to yours when opening the door. What do? This gave me a chuckle when not a single person wanted to verbally apologize. I don't know if it's because of the social ineptitude of teens, or because they worry the person whose car they damaged is going to flatten them into a pancake. It's just a funny thought that 24 people collectively just would be happier not personally confronting someone. Now, I've done this before, and I did a runner. I ain't ashamed to admit it, and well, 11 people wouldn't be ashamed either. Now, the bit I do find intriguing is people really value their anonymity. It's amazing that the moment you can hide behind a phone, you're very willing to talk to them, because 7 people were happy to offer a form of payment through a note, whereas 6 were fine just dropping a note and also running. Your friend enters a relationship with someone you know is only in it for themselves and does not care about their partner. Do you say something? 4 of you are brutal. You really want them to learn their lesson? As for the one person as well that wants to paint the dickhead in a worse light, that's how people get arrested for things they didn't do. Okay, disregarding that though, 4 of you are too kind for your own good and would sugarcoat it, and the last 15 of you would tell the honest truth. Let me share some personal experience here. People are blinded by love. I hope he doesn't watch this, but just in case, I will simply call him D. D and I have not always had the best friendship, but that's irrelevant right now. One time he was with this incredibly abusive and toxic girl. From an outside perspective, we could quite clearly see that their relationship was not going to last, and would only hurt him in the long run. We told him the honest truth. Some of his closest friends all came to him saying, "You are only going to end up hurt." But like I said, love makes you blind. He heard us, but he didn't take it in, and eventually she did a lot of things that got to him. Fortunately, them breaking up had a fairly good conclusion, but what I learnt is that, sadly, people think that they know what's best for them a lot of the time. And whilst I called it brutal, the sad reality is, You save yourself some time and effort by just saying nothing at all and letting them learn the hard way. Or as one person answered, sometimes you do have to lie. Despite that, I don't think I would be able to just sit around and do nothing, knowing that someone is taking advantage of someone close to me. So even if they don't care, I feel the need to say something. The teacher forgot there was homework. You did it, but someone you hate didn't. Do you rat the whole class out? 20 of you said snitches get stitches. Good. I'd consider myself a pretty lawful student, and even I would not say anything because, let's be honest, no one likes the person that does this. Sacrificing a class of people, most of whom are indifferent to me, is not worth it for the suffering of one. 4 people still thought it was though. I'm glad I don't go to school with you lot. This concludes the first section. Let's do a little analysis. Let me say though, I respect this is a small sample size, so I doubt these statistics would add up to reality. When it came to brutality, or effectively the most malicious options in which you cared more about yourself than others, 49% of the women's responses were brutal, whereas 41% of the males were brutal. Due to the amount of people, I'm gonna just say that gender has no effect on your honesty. The difference is not significant enough. In the context of ages, there was a minimal lapse too. Answers from people between the ages of 13 and 14 were brutal 42% of the time. From 15 to 16, 35% of the answers were brutal. 45% of the 17 to 18 answers were brutal, and finally 53% of the 18 plus was brutal. I will say, I think this is somewhat accurate to the way people grow. Kids are little shits, and I know 13 to 14 year olds that truly care about themselves and only themselves. They've got a good enough understanding of the world to grasp some degree of limits, but despite that they don't think twice about what they say to people or what the consequences of their actions are. When you get to 15 to 16 though, you start to respect everything a lot more, what people go through, and that, to be honest, it's just not worth the effort to be cruel. Finally, as you grow up again and gain a lot of independence, you are the person that suffers, so you can start being a dick again with less fear of repercussions because you have lived long enough to know what's too far. This is all conjecture though. Maybe with a large sample size we would not see this. Before I move on, let me reiterate that if you are interested in participating or keeping up with all of my content, please join the Discord. I'll get on my hands and knees if you want. Also, subscribe if you want. I honestly care more about my server than my sub count, but I do like to use them both as measures of progress. Anyway, let's move on. What I like to consider an emotional dilemma is one that, whilst it has its consequences, they are ones that can be recovered. The issue of them comes down to whose happiness you value more, your own or someone else's. Someone keeps taking your lunch at school. You know who it is, but they are generally a good student. How do you react? Why are you lot suddenly confrontational? When you're in the wrong, you don't want to apologize to someone in person, but when you are the victim, you want to get up in their face? I don't know. If it was me, I'd be happy just avoiding people in both altercations, but this isn't about me. 10 of you are confronting the thief yourself. 7 of you simply reporting it. 4 of you cope. And the last 3 tried to take some kind of revenge. I feel like taking revenge is just unnecessary, but anything to make yourself feel better, I guess. You're in a busy store and get the last games console off the shelf. A middle-aged woman asks if she can have it for her child's birthday and that she can't find it elsewhere. What should you do? I do find it hysterical that 12 of you just want their child to learn a valuable lesson in not getting everything they want. I hate young kids too. However, I do think I worded that a little brutally. 8 of you would give her the thing because you know it's a good deed. 3 of you give it to her out of pity, and 1 of you is based. I just realized I put dollars twice for this question. Your boss gives everyone a bonus $100 for their hard work. He entrusts the distribution to one person. After not receiving it, you realize he pocketed it all to himself. How do you handle it? 18 of you report it to the boss. In a workplace, this is probably the only logical option. However, the boss clearly trusts this person, so who's to say they'll believe you? 4 of you would personally confront him and ask him to give everyone their money, and the last 2 of you would either ask them to give only you your money, which just makes you an accessory to the crime, or just cope because you have a job and it's not worth risking losing it over $100. I was hoping more of you would say that you wouldn't go for this, so that I could blame it on horniness. It's why I specifically made the person a girl this time. Unfortunately, all of you are too nice for your own good. Same with me because this is another personal experience one. Your friend who no one else likes asks for you to go to bowling with her on her birthday. As much as you like her, you don't want to go. Should you still go because it's an annual celebration? Literally only one person said they wouldn't go, and that they'd lie about it. 15 people would go, both because you respect her and because you realise no one else would, whereas option 1 and 2 had 4 voters individually. When I did this, I went purely for option 2. I didn't go because it was their birthday, despite it making me miserable. I just cared purely about making sure they were happy, as I value someone else's happiness over mine, which is really something I gotta work on, honestly. Personal therapy at 9 PM on the Blubber Blub channel. That concludes emotional dilemmas. Let's see who is more likely to care more about others than themselves. The females chose to value someone else's happiness 46% of the time, whereas the males only chose to value someone else's 38% of the time. Well, call me a woman then. Okay, the reality is, it's too insignificant of a difference again to make any conclusions. I'm glad gender doesn't really have a say in your moral obligations, at least in Western countries. From 13 to 14, 41% of the answers valued other people's happiness, 15 to 16, 38% of them, 17 to 18, also 38%, and 18 plus was 50%. Let's move on to the heavy ones, also known as severe consequences. These don't have a correct answer, plus the pros and cons of both options are in equilibrium. A family member very close to you is on their deathbed. They have a life insurance policy that expires at midnight. Do you unplug their life support? Now, I will say I'm going to be taking fraud out of the equation here, as I'd assume the people taking this survey would not have considered it either and focused on the ethical dilemma rather than the legal one. 3 of you are happy to just pull it. I guess if you really need that money. Unfortunately, a few extra minutes of their life is really only going to make you more sad, as well as you have the confidence of knowing when they'll finally pass, rather than sitting in a constant stress knowing it's going to be soon. You just don't know when. Letting them die peacefully had 11 votes, just coming out on top of asking them if they're okay with it. I can fully understand why some people would not want to do it at all, and I can also understand why someone would like the confirmation that they can do it. Playing devil's advocate, however, why should you respect the final moments of someone's life to such a degree? Look, I don't hold this opinion, but I can at least respect the fact that someone may argue, they're already going to die, why prolong it just to risk losing out on life insurance, something that you've been paying for so that when this moment comes, you get your compensation. It seems silly to value their decision of living a few minutes over that of money that could help you for years, but let's not get into this. You guys made your choices and that's the way it is. Your sibling offers you an investment opportunity to turn $500 into 10 times its original amount. However, you realize that the procedure they are explaining is illegal. Do you still invest? No one was willing to rat out their own sibling. That either means my audience doesn't have siblings or has good relations with them. Most of you think that warning them is going to do something. Once again, good intentions, but people really just don't like listening. 6 of you like money, and 3 of you are happier just not getting involved at all. In this scenario, there really is no winning. On one hand, I think that just taking the money and getting out of this is sadly like the best outcome. The fact is, they're doing something illegal, you probably can't stop them, but if you aren't going to suffer any of the negatives, might as well benefit, I guess. This next one is a really tough one, and it's hard to fathom the fact that some people genuinely have to consider this in their lives. Someone very close to you gets in an accident and ends up severely disabled. They can no longer perform basic human function and rely on others to do everything. You believe that they are miserable, but there is no way for you to confirm, as they cannot communicate it with you through any means. Do you get them euthanized to put them out of their misery? This one really is just depressing. The thought that someone you care for so dearly could so quickly be taken from you. To put it simply, their body is there, but they aren't. 14 of you believe it's best that you leave them alive, whereas 10 would prefer to have them suffer no longer. This one really sucks. I don't have an opinion because I can't even begin to comprehend either option, making me feel better about myself. And I hope that no one, whether you're the victim or the decider, has to go through something like this in their life. Okay, this next one, man. You lot hate the elderly. Holy shit. Your boat is sinking. There is 3 rafts. You're capable of rowing a raft to shore with aid. If you go with the boat of families or elderly, there is a 50% chance you make it back. If you go with the boat of strong individuals, you are 100% going to make it back. Which boat do you get in? 0 people wanted to go with the old people. Didn't they tell you to respect your elders? Okay, Grandma, well, you're basically on your deathbed already. It was a perfect 50-50 split between strong individuals and families. This really does show that half of you care more about definitely saving lives, including your own, whereas others want to be a saviour to those that really need it, at the risk of their own life. Plot twist, everyone dies in the end anyway, because there wasn't enough room on the plank. You are in the middle of nowhere and are unable to call any sort of service. Your friend is gravely injured and will 100% bleed out if you do not intervene. You have a gun on you. If you shoot them, it will put them out of their misery and their death will not be associated with you at all. Do you make their death quicker? I can almost imagine this scene in my head, almost a climactic finish to a movie or a game. I'm sure there is some form of media in which this occurs. Sad music playing in the background. 14 of you would ask first, making them suffer a bit longer but only to confirm whether they'd like to die by bullet or their wounds. 8 of you could not even live with the guilt, and 2 of you would rather just do it. Me personally, I actually don't think I could do it, but if I could, I wouldn't ask. I think it's easy to cower behind the neutral option, where you think both parties win, when in reality both parties lose. Your friend is going to die, no way around it, and sadly by asking, even if it is their final wish to not get shot, I'm sure the pain of bleeding out surpasses that of a bullet, and now you have to sit around and watch someone you loved and cared so much about bleed and die. Whereas if they want to get shot, you had to prolong their suffering. The sad truth is, what seems like the safe option is really just a net loss for both victims. Hey, this is post-recording me, just quickly realizing something. I noticed that I didn't go into detail about gender and age on the third category, which was like the really harsh stuff. Originally I was going to count it up, and then I did, and I realized there's no point even giving the statistics, because let me tell you again, it's even. I don't think it's really coming as a shocker anymore, but I thought that I didn't want to record an entire thing was like, 53%, 46%, because I'm pretty sure you're fed up with me reading pointless numbers, so let me just tell you now that they're even again. Nothing special. Okay, that's all. Back to the interesting stuff. So what's the conclusion from all of this? Well, it's nature versus nurture, baby. Whoa! I know that the amount of results I have here is not enough to give a definitive answer, but just looking at it, age and gender at least don't really have any impact on who you are morally, and it's more likely your upbringing. So hey, nobody is born evil. So to conclude, we face a lot of problems every single day. Some easy to solve, others more challenging. Sometimes there really is no winning in a situation, but the one thing you've always got to remember is to never let the decisions you make beat you up. In the end, if you're presented with something, you do what you believe is for the best. Someone may disagree, but someone isn't you. Do what you think is the best option, and sleep well knowing that even if things turn bad, you did and always will do the best that you can do for the world and others.